Alrighty, addicts, welcome back to another Danmachi video. This is the episode we've all been waiting for. This is the final showdown between Bell and the Moss Huge. And man, there's a lot of good stuff to unpack here. So let's just dive in at the beginning. We're starting off the episode with the recap of the Grinmore with Aisha handing Haruhime the book that, lets an adventurer kind of cheat their way to getting a new magic. And this was something that it's not super necessary, but given to where we ended off at in the last episode with Haruhime starting her spell, I don't know. I do love the little bit of a break before we get back to that moment. The only thing I wish this flashback scene had that it didn't is Aisha highlighting that she stole this from Hermes, which I think, I don't think they even highlighted that when we saw, part of this scene in the first episode, but that's okay. I eventually, if we don't get it, it's fine, but eventually I want to see that because Hermes deserves every little bit of people stealing from him from the way he acts, especially off of the Xneo arc. But moving back into the scene at hand where we actually left off from the episode 4, we get all of the adventurers in the expedition party fighting while Haruhime's casting Grow. I'm going to just call it Grow. I know that's not the actual name of her spell, but I feel like I'm going to butcher if I actually try to say it. Nope, not even going to try. All right, guys. But I think this is a really cool visual. I love there was several moments that they bring from the book that are perfectly visualized just how I thought they would be when I was reading the book. I think that just shouts out to how great the author is being able to write something so vivid. But I think it's also a shout out to the animators of the show because as a book reader, it was really cool seeing those moments come to life in the way that, I saw it in the book. And I think it was just cool. And you get just the way Haruhime's casting her spell, the reveal that she's able to have multiple tails that's going to lead to multiple level boosts. That's right. Man, such a hype moment and such a really cool scene to have the level boosts come down to all of the different adventurers. Now they do say go into a little bit more detail of the extent of her new magic. It's kind of just letting her, in a sense, it's like a what would you call it? I almost had it there. Not a buffer. It's a gosh, why can't I? Yeah, it's a buff. I don't know why. I was sitting there. I was trying to think of my gaming knowledge, but sitting here having played like games for not months on end. I was like, what's that term again? But yeah, she gets like a buff onto her magic. And this is something that in the book they haven't gotten to yet, but I'm really fascinated to see if this extends to any of the other magic spells she might learn in the future. Just to see what kind of absurdity, multiplier she gets on any of those. I think that'll be really cool. But now while everyone is under level boost, they do get a boost of morale like I was talking about, but Aisha is unfortunately able to realize the Moss Huge's true intentions too late, and that is with him collecting the magic stones like we talked about briefly in the last episode review. And this unfortunately is where stuff starts hitting the fan. But I will say, let's just take a moment, if we will, to appreciate the way that they animate the emotion of the Moss Huge. Look at the smile of this guy. I love the choice to do this. I think it was something that I don't recall them specifically saying if the Moss Huge ever looked like he was taunting, like a smirking taunt or anything like that. But I think in the books, you had the inner monologue. And I agree with one of the comments that I saw in one of the previous episode reviews. It's really hard to translate that into a show. And for some, I think, for an attentive viewer, you wouldn't have a problem, being confused. But I understand that, you gotta take in the general audience into account. So I think this is actually a nice way to compromise that. And I think it lets it flow a little better in a show, just to have it conveyed in a different way. And I think it still gets the same point across, but I just really love that. I think, again, that's something in, you know, when you're adapting something into a more visual experience, that's stuff that you can do. And I think it lets me have the best of both, right? Because I can enjoy both the way the show did it and the way the book did it. And it's just a different way of doing it, but keeping the essence itself. So I really do like that. But like I said before, this is where stuff really starts to hit the fan, because we do get the Moss Huge hulking out, kind of evolving into his next form, right? I think, you know, you haven't even seen all of it, but it's really cool. I don't think we had an illustration in the book, actually, of the Moss Huge after he had eaten the magic crystals, or the magic stone, sorry, but it was really cool. I like the direction, and I think it's again a cool way visually to you know, let you know that the stakes have been risen, right? And I think you get to see that when Aisha's even having trouble holding her own when the Moss Huge goes to attack her after this. And so with Aisha being in trouble, right, because of, you know, the Moss Huge getting his level up, you have Wealth coming in here thinking like he's going to do some damage, and then it's, you know, revealed that the Moss Hedge, like any true anime character, is one step ahead, and he has stole yet another piece of gear from fallen adventurers that lets him protect himself from the weakness of fire, which again was another really big highlight of just how capable the Moss Huge is. I think the Moss Huge, while he was a very strong opponent, I think the biggest thing is he was like the closest thing to fighting an adventurer that was a Xneo, and I think that was really cool, because, you know, like, well, outside of Asteros, right? But I think just the craftiness, the scheminess, the methodical planning of the Moss Huge was always the biggest threat of that enemy. So I just love every little bit you get to see more of that. And if you thought things were turning for the worse, this is where you kind of hit rock bottom for everyone, because you know, Wells' magic sword breaks, which is not his last one, thankfully, but his next one breaks nonetheless, which I think is a great way visually, again, to symbolize, you know, their resolve is starting to crumble here. Just as Lily's also about to lose hope when she's trying to find a way out of this situation, and you have all of the wounded adventurers coming to their aid, making a last stand, and I think it just lets you have, again, a really like, this is like, we're coming to a head here, right? And there's a couple flashback scenes that I really think are great, not only just to have in there as, you know, a way for Lily to move past her limit, to become even stronger as a strategist and do what Belle has, you know, I guess, what would you call it? Not encouraged, but kind of instilled this resolve in them, and she's able to use that as an anchor to push forward. And I really do like that. You also get the wounded adventurers taking their last stand, helping out the party as much as they can, and even kind of willing to sacrifice themselves as like a thank you for repaying them for saving them this long. And I love how Lily's, you know, able to be like Belle in this moment and, you know, say, no, we're not going to leave anybody behind, because that's not what Belle would do. He wouldn't leave me behind, and, you know, she's going to be his supporter to the end. So I love that. It's a great moment for Lily to shine. And in this moment, we get, or I guess throughout these sequences, you get sprinklings of flashbacks back before the expedition started, before they left for the dungeon. And you get some moments with Hestia. A lot of those moments aren't, again, they're like just filling in some information that we're getting, or, you know, just kind of, I guess, spending more time letting those scenes breathe. But I think more so than like the information actually in those scenes, I love just being able to see Hestia and Hestia's, not point of view, but just interaction in those moments, because we're not going to see much of Hestia throughout this season just because of the nature of being in the dungeon. So every little bit we get to see of Hestia, I really do like that they're putting that in there. Now, this is when things turn for the better this time, and even for hype, because we get Belle coming in like a badass, man. Oh, it was so epic. I love, you hear just like the music. I don't know if it's considered like Belle's theme, but they have a recurring chords of instruments playing whenever I think Argonaut is being in. So between like the chimes and then like that theme, like, it was just, everything was popping. You get the like Belle setting the battle stage for him and the Moss Huge to have the final showdown, and just a really cool backdrop that looked identical to what I pictured it in the book as well. So that was another really cool thing that I thought they brought to from the novel. But yeah, the expectations were definitely raised when we got to this point. So this was definitely a make it or break it moment of the episode of like, ooh, this is going to depict how I see this episode looking back and how many times I'll want to rewatch it. And again, like I said, the Moss Huge, I think I would put it, he's one of probably the top 3 antagonists that Belle has gone up against for me. So this was one that I really wanted to see done well, and I think they did a really good job. Again, there's several moments that they took from the book that are great. You get Argo Vesta, you get the iconic like wind pose that Belle has that's taken straight from like the illustration. I'll try to put a side-by-side of that if I can, but yeah, there's just a lot of that going on. I think overall that fight was definitely better animated than the previous fights we've gotten this season, which that's not knocking them, but I think it's just going to show like, okay, good, they did good, they did the right thing, they saved a better, more time and effort put into the more important fight, and I was really happy about that. Again, it's hard to compare like this show to something like Jujutsu Kaisen, for instance, because that show's just like on another level of animation, especially when it comes to its fight sequences. But for what it is, I think it was really great. And for me, Danmachi, like the anime, has always been, I think, really good of capturing or like recapturing the feel I had when I first read the book. And even though it's maybe not always as grandiose as the book is, or at least in my mind, as in comparison to the book, I think it does always put a smile on my face because it makes me remember the same joy that I had when I was reading that particular moment in the novel. So that's something that I think, what more can you ask for, right? And it was just really great. Now, like I said, minor gripe with some of the animation, but overall, I did really like it. Now, I do love, I gotta highlight it just because I wrote it down. It's not really a line of dialogue, but it is a line of internal dialogue that I find is probably my favorite of the book for Volume 12, which is what we've seen so far in the show. But that is Belle basically telling the Moss Huge that he's fought stronger. And I love that, it gets to the whole motivation of, he's got to overcome the Moss Huge if he even has a chance of beating Astros. And that's, at the end of the day, his goal. He wants to be able to face Astros and beat him the next time he sees him. So I love that, even with Argo Vesta, they don't go into it here, but, Argo Vesta is something that Belle thought of and specifically wanted to design, I guess if you want to put it in those terms, but design specifically to kill Astros, which I think... he had a really good test run, didn't he? But I think Argo Vesta's an ability, too, that I just want to see introduced more in the books going forward. I think it was such a hype moment, and we haven't really had an opportunity to see it going forward. But I think, done so good. But anyway, I also, I almost skipped over it, but there is a scene as we're fighting here that everybody's watching from the expedition party, and it almost seems like they're in the grandstands, and it gave me quite honestly, it gave me Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament vibes, you know, when they're in that arc, and it was just really cool shot. But there's a moment in that scene where everybody's watching Bell fight, and I just want to highlight it because it's one of Michael's favorite points, or at least I guess like lore-wise, it's he loves the reasoning behind it, and I do too. And I just want to highlight here where Makoto says that, or is making comment that when you're using level boost, your mind's not fully in sync with your body, because your mind, since you're not naturally at that status, your mind's having a hard time being in sync and working efficiently. And so, you know, it's making the comment that the reason why Bell is able to go up against the Moss Huge this time and actually get the upper hand is because it's taken all this time for Bell to finally get his body and mind into sync after being leveled up. And I love this too, because I think it's just an added thing of like, you know, yes, Bell is leveling up, and he's leveling up the fastest that anybody has, but it also comes at a price, and it's not just showing that it's like, okay, he's got a cheat ability and he's able just to like, you know, one-shot things now, and it's kind of like OP in that sense. Like, he still has to put in the effort and, you know, still hone his skills, and it's more than just the ability, it's also him and, you know, the hard work of actually getting that to pay off, right? And so I really do love that highlight, and I think it really just elevates Bell too as an adventurer, right? Seeing what he can do, and honestly, it's almost more impressive at the speed he's able to do it. Which I guess, you know, agility's all Bell's got, right? Not everything he's got, but I'm just saying like that's his like main thing, right? So it's no surprise. But anyway, moving on, because I do want to make this short and sweet, but. Let's see here. What else do we got? Oh, yeah. More just two funny things. We do get Bell, you know, doing the final blow with Argo Vesta on the Moss Huge, and that's able to break the parasite attack that was hindering everybody that was wounded. I think Chigusa is still one of those ones I look and like she's like Sleeping Beauty apparently. As soon as it lifts, she's able to talk, and it's like there was another scene in the episode where, you know, even the other wounded, like the dwarfs and the elves, again, like it could be a status thing, but like why are they able to not only walk around and talk, but they're also fighting? They're helping them fight off the horde, and Chigusa's the only one just it's like, what? It's so weird. It's so weird, but I'll take it. It's funny. It's really funny. I don't know who thought that was a cool idea, but yeah, I don't remember that in the book. I kind of want to reread the book just to see if that was a detail I skipped over. But yeah, that's just too funny. I also do love that Mari just pops out of nowhere underneath the ice. Like she's Majima from Yakuza 2, you know, with Majima everywhere. Man, she's got that down. I actually wouldn't even mind if that's like her thing now, whenever they go into the dungeon. But I think that's just a really nice ending. It helps cap it off in a really happy and triumphant into you know, their first ever obstacle from this expedition. And in a lot of ways, Volume 12, I saw it as kind of like a fairy tale story. Something of the like that, you know, the same thing that Bell loves, right? The stories of, the classic stories of like heroes. And I think it was just a really good fit. It was nice seeing that being a highlight for Bell in particular to have. And it was just really fun. And I think, again, like I said, I think the beginning part of the season that's done all of Volume 12's content, I think it keeps the essence of that book. So this might be, I'll have to go back. We need to do like a tier list probably in the future, but I think this might be the best book, or the best like group of episodes that has, or how would I word this? It's the best. Let me put it this way. It's, I think, the most faithful adaptation of a book in the series we've gotten in the show. There we go. That was a tongue twister, man. I had to think about how I needed to word that for it to make sense to you all. But yeah, I think the only thing really that was, I think, a major letdown so far is the lack of focus on the prophecy, which, you know, it's not really a big thing. If anything, I think the prophecy was just a really cool added tension factor to the book, and also I think it really does highlight the moments that Belle has with Cassandra later on, with also leaving a little bit more intrigue of like, where can the author use this ability later. But at the end of the day, it's not a big deal, and you know, I'm fine if we just have it in the books, because, you know, if it doesn't really need to be in the show. But I will say, I think it will be a shame if they do shoehorn it in at the start of every section of this season, just as like the almost like a comic relief point. So I'm hoping that they just kind of like left it for this one part and they don't bring up the other parts of the prophecy, because at this point I don't think they're going to be able to land it as well as the book. So really, I guess that's really just going to see what the final verdict of that part is at the end of the season. But so far, I think everything else has been really good, and I just can't wait. Again, like I said, you know, you might be kind of mixed on having this feel kind of happy and triumphant when the dungeon is all about being, you know, just the most cruel tyrant, like Daphne says, that's just going to beat you into the ground until there's nothing left, right? And I think that's definitely a theme that's important for whenever they're in the dungeon. But I think it's all right to have that in at the end of this episode, because it lets us have a small victory, especially for the party. And also, it is, you kind of need this moment for where they're going to be at in the next episode, because it's gonna take a turn, and I'm here for the ride, and you know, I'll be your after episode therapy if you need it. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna shut this down. Thank you guys for continuing to tune in here. I know we've been doing a lot of Danmachi videos lately, and I'm a bit sad that we're just doing the episode reviews. As much as I do love these, I hate to starve the other content that we have. So we're going to be releasing some more here in the future. I think the episode reviews are just going to be the brunt of the content right now. But if you're able to bear with us, we will be able to have more series content out, you know, through books, other shows, and, you know, movies and the like. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys in the next video. There's going to be some prizes, so be sure to stay tuned. But anyway, guys, until then, peace addicts.